Hi folks. So just continuing on from the station that we made in the last tutorial, we're going to have a look at a couple of the basic components. Um, to do this, we can expand the tree, go into config, and under drivers, if we create a new folder, we could call this, let's call it boiler control. Just press OK. Now if we double click this, it brings it up to the top view, which is our wire sheet at the minute. That can be changed, but we'll discuss that later. You'll notice this is the AX wire sheet. There's also AX property sheet and property sheet, which are quite useful. The AX is basically the older Java version, whereas the regular property sheet is your HTML5. Um, Now there's a few different ways you can add components. So if you right click and press new, you can add, if you got a selection of four. Now obviously you're not going to write a full strategy with four, so there has to be another way. That other way is if we go to Windows and Sidebars, if I could select it, and then click on Palette. Under the Kit Control palette, we actually have a lot of different components that we can bring in. So our points would be the ones you see in right click. We can get points or writable points for Booleans, numeric, enumerated, and string. Extensions, we can have totalizers and so on. There's basically components that you'll get in 99% of other BMS softwares out there or control softwares out there. A couple of notable ones are under HVAC, you've got T-stats and loop points. Your logic, you've got your and, your or, your equal, and your latches. Now, if we want to add a point, we can bring a point in from here. Say we want a boolean writable, and we'll be asked to create a name. So for talk's sake, we'll call this boiler enable. Once we add the component itself, we'll see there's an out value and two in slots. Now there's actually more than two in slots. You'll see they're labeled 10 and 16. So if we go to pin slots, we can enable as many as we want. They're always enabled, but we can view as many as we want. If we select them all, then we get this large block that's kind of unsightly. And for a boiler enable, you're probably not going to use all 16. So whether it's required or not, I'll leave that up to your choice. So right now we've got 16 in slots and one out slot. If we double click on the block, it'll take us to the AX property sheet. And the first thing we notice under here is the facets. We've got a true text equals true and a false text equals false. That might not mean anything in general, so we might want our true text to be enabled for boiler and our false to be off. Something simple. Now, this here button gives us our history, so it's a quick and handy tool if you've got to change a couple of different points and you want them all to have the same. Your latest facet that you've made change to comes to the top. So say you go into another point, another Boolean point, you can change your facets pretty quickly using the history tool. On top of this, what else do we have in here? So we have our fallback value, which is basically, so at the minute we don't have anything coming into the block. We don't have anything enabling it, so it doesn't know when it's going to be on or off. So currently we're getting a null value, which means that we're not going to be enabling any boilers. If we wanted to, say you've gone to a site and you're doing an upgrade, but the site can't have all their stuff turned off, you need to install the JS and you don't have much time to do it. You'll get your controllers in and you might not have the strategy written. You can set this fallback point to true, and save it, and that means without any enable, like any time schedules or stuff like that, this point will be enabled and it'll allow the customer's equipment to keep running while you're upgrading it, providing you've done a good bit of the wiring. There is another way you can actually control that, and that is by going over to your nav tree, right clicking, pressing actions, and just set. If it's currently unenabled, so if I set that off, you'll actually see a change on the fallback here. Um, just like that, and then we have an off state being sent out. Another way again is to click on the block in the wire sheet and actually change it here. you can have it set. Well, just enable it again. Now, that's a fallback value. So say we wanted to add a time schedule to this. We'll go to our palette. We'll drop down to our schedule palette. Um, if you don't have that on your drop down menu, if you hit this folder icon and type in schedule, you'll be able to double click it and that'll open it automatically. So we want a Boolean schedule. We'll call this heating demand. Now I'd probably put this on a different page and have all my schedules in one, but for just to show you how this works, we'll stick it in here. We double click on this, we can set currently it's what day are we on? Sunday at stupid o'clock, so we can set this up and we'll just put it on for now. We're getting an out value of true, so if we put this to 16, we'll see that our fallback value is now not in action because we've got an actual point reading or writing to this to enable it. In the same sense, we have 1 to 16, so this is your kind of priority array as such. Say we wanted a frost setting. We obviously don't want frost to be down the bottom, we would want frost to be above our time schedule. So we'll go in here now and just clear the day and save it. So our boiler enable is now off on 16. So what we'll do to simulate a kind of frost, just to show you how the priority array works, is we'll right click, we'll hit new, and we'll do boolean writable, and we'll just call it frost. Now what we can do is obviously we don't have a stat or a sensor at the minute that we can actually test this with, but as before, if we right click on this and hit actions and set, we can have this to true on our fallback. So if I drag this in and frost, we maybe want it at 5, even though our time schedule's off, because it's going to 16 and we have an enable going to 5, the 5 takes priority, and then this would then go out and enable our boiler. It's fairly similar for all the other kind of components you're going to add, numeric writables, same kind of layout. If you go into pin slots, you can get your extra pin slots. They all function fairly similar except for different values because numeric, boolean, string, and enumerated. So yeah, that's kind of the basics of components. If you want to create more folders, obviously right click new folder, depending on what way you want to split your strategy up. And if you want to delete components, it's as simple as clicking on them and pressing delete. You can also right click and press delete. But bear in mind that if you delete a component, it also deletes all the links. So make sure if you've got a big strategy and you're deleting a component, you really can delete it. You don't need it. Another thing that's probably worth noting is if you right click, you can duplicate this block, and we'll call it boiler enable 1. That's good if you have multiple boilers. You could name it boiler 1, boiler 2, and you've got enables for each boiler. The other thing you can do is if we copy this and say we have 6 boilers in the place, we can hit paste special, and we want an extra 5, so we'll quantify 5 here and press OK, and that'll give us, it's a quick way. Now we'll have to go in and rename them all, based on the fact that I started with boiler enable. Really what we would want is boiler 1, boiler 2, boiler 3, and so on, so we'll have to rename them that way. But once they come out, you just put them where you need on your wire sheet and put in all the links that require to turn the boilers on. As far as components go, that's probably all you really need to know in terms of the basics. Now, later down the line, we'll get into time schedules, t-stats, loop points, and all that, and they all come out of your palette. But how to program them might be different depending on the goals you want to achieve. Hope this helps, guys. Cheers.